And joining us now from Baton Rouge in Louisiana is Andre Pagliarini. He's an expert on U.S. and Latin American relations and assistant professor at Louisiana State University. Welcome to the show. Very strong words there from De Silva, but this is not going to help an already fractured relationship between the two presidents and the two countries.
That's right. Thank you for having me. Lula has been critiqued by particularly the opposition in Brazil for not doing more to reach out to Donald Trump before things came to this head. Lula would say he's happy to talk to the U.S. president. He's gotten along with every U.S. president during his long years as president. He, of course, was elected twice in the early 2000s and is now back winning the 2002 election. But he has said there doesn't seem to be any interest from the Trump administration, which Lula characterizes as a kind of bullying actor on the world stage.
Is there a domestic message here as well, though? Because, Donald Trump has been very clear in his support of Bolsonaro. De Silva has a domestic constituency he needs to appeal to. Is this him fighting back in some sort of way?
I have a piece that just came out in Foreign Policy magazine, which makes this case that the Trump administration, in my opinion, it seems to be getting perhaps not great advice, because what it has done in taking this step, yes, it will hurt the Brazilian economy, the Brazilian producers, the Brazilian people, but it is a political gift to the Lula administration, which in many ways has struggled in this third term of his to make a real big political mark. They've been struggling in the polls. They've been struggling in their negotiations with Congress, which is dominated by opposition forces. This, all of a sudden, gives Lula a very powerful narrative to tell a domestic audience as he goes before a political campaign for re-election next year. Lula now can credibly present himself as the person standing up for Brazilian institutions, the Brazilian Constitution, against foreign interference, in this case, by the most powerful country in the world, which is very clearly trying to lean on the Brazilian president to undo the democratic order by trying to get the Supreme Court to drop the case against Bolsonaro. That's not how things work. And Lula can now very forcefully argue that to a domestic audience. And polls show they are rallying around that message, at least in this early moment.
But at this moment in time, is there an off-ramp for either Trump or De Silva in any way?
That's the challenge, is that the specific reasons Trump gave for this 50% tariff in this letter that he wrote, that he posted on Truth Social, which the old-fashioned Lula did not appreciate, are both things that are very much not really negotiable from the Brazilian point of view. One was essentially amnesty for Bolsonaro for his alleged involvement in a coup attempt, and the Supreme Court's demand that basically social media companies adhere by Brazilian laws if they want to operate in the country. There isn't a whole lot of wiggle room there. And now Lula is someone, his critics and his allies alike say, is someone who likes to negotiate. Sometimes critics, even supporters, would say too much. But Lula has explicitly said the problem here is that the American president has given no wiggle room to maneuver on these. So the short answer to your question is it's hard to see where the off-ramp is. Now, one might imagine that when prices go up for American consumers, which they very likely will, coffee, orange juice, meat, eventually perhaps even airfare, because the parts that Embraer, the Brazilian airplane company, uses, 45% of those parts come from the United States. And so one could imagine that the United States economy might feel some pinch, and that might push the president to back off of this. But in the short term, I think it's very hard to see either president backing down from these kind of maximalist positions.
Now, I know that Jair Bolsonaro has his own problems, a court case not being the least of them. But does this support from Donald Trump give him a way back into Brazilian politics?
Much of the reporting coming out of Brazil right now indicates that it's Bolsonaro's son, a member of Congress, who has taken a leave of absence in the United States to lobby full time for the White House on his father's behalf, that he has designs on the presidency. I think that Bolsonaro, the father, it's very hard to imagine him being a very active player. He will continue to be relevant, even if he does end up in jail, as a national sort of kingmaker, so much so that most right-wing candidates seek his blessing ahead of the race next year. But he himself, I think, would have a very hard time inserting himself in the presidential conversation. What I think we're seeing here is an attempt on the right of Brazil to determine the future of the anti-Workers' Party, anti-Lula opposition.
And Jair Pagliarini, live for us there in Baton Rouge at Louisiana. Thank you very much. Fascinating thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.